we ride at dawn.
Spiky Bits.
Welcome back, Hobby Maniacs. I'm Rob Barrett from SpikyBits.com, and today we're going to unbox and build the Attilan Rough Riders from Games Workshop in a beautiful plastic kit. I know a lot of people have been waiting for this. We're also going to take a look at the new Cadian Upgrades box, which unfortunately we're not going to have a lot of time to build today, but I'm really interested in all the poses and all the bits that come in here, and I think just looking through the instruction sheet will really help everybody out as to what you can actually build with this thing and how they will look. And yes, you need a box of Cadians too, which I don't have right now, so that's another reason I'm probably not going to build this. But either way, let's jump right into it. So the new Rough Rider squad is $60 from Games Workshop, and I think the upgrade sprue was, or the upgrade set was $35 from them as well. The kits, this is a really interesting kind of type thing, because whenever you're looking at a kit that is basically two models, because you got a horse and you have the riders, you always have to, you're like, oh, it's just 5 models, but it's really not 5 models, it's 10 models if you think about it. Because once you get painting, you'll realize it, and I'm sure once we get building this, we'll definitely realize it as well. They swapped out the bases too. I think these were 60. I want to say they were 60 by 7. Oh, I'll probably say right here. I remember looking at it. They're 60 millimeter ovals, and I forget what the length is right here, but I want to say it's 32. But we'll try to pull that up on GW's website because they actually list it out right there. It's going to be 3 sprues, and unfortunately they're not independent like builds or anything like that. You are going to have to kind of put them together, and we'll take a closer look at the sprues here in a second. But let's jump into the instructions and see what we can see. Digging into this bad boy here, you can see all the pertinent information. So it's got the 3 sprues, it's got the 60 millimeter oval. It is 35 millimeters wide. I just looked it up, so it's pretty close. It looked like a 32. And then you've got the build variants, which there's only one arm for the taser goad or whatever it's called, or the goad lance, G-O-A-D, not G-O-A-T. It's not Tom Brady. But then over here, it's going to have the spear, and there's going to be separate spear tips, which I'm about to show you, where I think there's a Melta and a frag version or something. I'm just going to build it with like the 1 spear tip because I don't care. And I mean, it's a 1 per box upgrade. So I feel like you could just build it the same way. And, if you have this upgrade, I mean, you can magnetize this for sure. That would be super easy. And magnetizing just one of these with like a little, 1/16 inch magnet is not hard at all. We're probably not going to do it here. That would just be probably like a 1/8 by 1/16, but we'll take a look at it here in a second. So the one thing you have to remember is that when you see stuff like this, they give you these assemblies. So these are going to be the same assemblies for all the way through here. So it looks like the heads are actually of 2 pieces, a front and a back. The bandoliers, which I believe are what goes across the front here, there's going to be some different ones. This is probably the front ones, if I had to guess, and this is probably the back ones. And then here you've got where it's just front and back torso. And that way they don't have to show you all of this. They can just show you the overall builds, because there's going to be a variant for the sergeant, but then everybody else really, I think the only thing that's going to be different is probably just the tip of the spear there. So building it up, it looks very similar to what we've seen in the past with like the old horses from Warhammer Fantasy, where you just had a left and a right half. Well, that was really it. You just had a left and right half, and you put them together, and you really hoped that there wasn't a bad seam in the middle, because it basically was going to have this huge seam, and then it was going to have a seam all the way down the butt, and there's a little hole where you put the little tail in there. You had to remember to attach the tail out the back. So these look to be a little bit more robust as far as that goes. Like, you've got a top and a bottom, and it almost looks like the barding is going to hold or going to hide a lot of the seam lines and stuff, which they've gotten really good at over the years. And the same here. It looks like there's going to be a seam up the front, there's going to be a seam on the side, but there's going to be a seam in the horse head, but you're not going to be able to tell where the actual horse head attaches, is what it looks like. And now I just realized that there's an actual, there's actually ear bits right there, and I am pretty sure that I did not notice that until just now. So that's going to be really interesting. Okay, so getting into this, on the right side here, there is same deal, up bottom and the top, so a lot of that bits are going to be hidden by the barding and stuff. and then there's an actual foot bit on this side, believe it or not. So you're gonna have to be, don't forget your feet and don't forget your ears. I remember there's gonna be a lot of bits here. And then you've got some equipment on this side, some equipment on this side, which also includes the rider's leg, the whole leg, not just the foot. And then you've got the reins here that are gonna attach to the highlighted areas on all this. I really like how they tell you the highlighted area so you can use your glue and you can kind of apply it there, which is pretty funny. I think that is always very super helpful. So then you get down to the 4D build here, which is looks to be all the different. Nope. Okay, so this is for everybody. So everybody's going to go together like this. I'm just interpreting these now. These are going to be your sergeants because you can tell by the tassel on his head. So you can have them with the saber out and the spear up, or the spear out and the saber holstered. So there's probably going to be two different bits there. And then everybody else, it looks like you just have the kind of the optional build right here. And moving, it looks like if you want okay, so the saber is actually two different smaller bits. It's not like a whole assembly like this one right here. And it does look like that you still attach this because that just goes onto the back of those canisters right there. So there's a lot of tricky stuff here if you start like slipping, because I already noticed that the ears were a completely different piece. And I'm going to be honest with you, Movie Magic, I already built the model, and I built him without his ears. So after I cut this clip, I'm going to have to go back and attach that bit. So when I show you, hey, look at this, he has his ears on, because that's a little embarrassing, I think. All right, over to here, you've got an armor plate, and then the different tips, the melter or the frag, and then you've got the goat with a T, because I'm being funny. And then that's pretty much it. And then from there, you've got a couple of different poses. It looks like some running horses here. And then over to here, you've got one kind of trotting or jumping, I guess. Full stride. We'll go full stride. Doesn't look like there's any surprises, so to speak, as far as like the build goes. But this guy has a detonator. That's cool. I didn't see that bit in there either yet. So lots of character here, so you can definitely build a bunch of these and have them in your army and not have any duplicates. But the one thing that I definitely wanted to point out was that the heads are separate on all of these. And in theory, other than the little fur on their gloves right here, that's all that technically makes them Talaron. So we're going to try some head swaps too, I feel like. Because if you're a horse rider, and I'm not a horse rider, and I don't know the first bit about riding a horse, but I imagine that you have some different looking gloves than probably the rest of like your standard rank and file army people, as far as that goes. So I could see the gloves being a little bit different, but I think standard heads with helmets on them, if I remember what I've seen from like riot police and like mounted police officers at least, they always seem to have a helmet on. So I feel like you would just have your normal helmet on if you really wanted to, make them look Cadian. Jumping in and taking a look at the sprues here. We'll do it one by one real quick. Here's that areas I was telling you about where you're going to want to assemble all of the torsos together. The heads, this is the back of the heads, these are the front of the heads. They are kind of intermixed in between the rest of the sprues there. The other three sprues, and then you can see, and there's something I didn't touch on too, there's a little bit of terrain on the feet too, which is really neat. Here's all the different tips and then all of those bandoliers and things, so you just kind of have to use the little key at the front of the instructions to do all that. And then here's your slices, where you've got your arms with the reins, the rein slices on them, your saber, and then a couple of the different lances right there, and then there's the one bit for the saber and the other bit for the saber up there, which looks really cool. And I do like how they have those armored sections on the front too, which is pretty fresh. And then here's some more of those where, like I said, they kind of hide all the heads on here. And then also you've got the feet here. So it actually looks like there's a bunch of feet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But they're all part 20 over here, and they're all part. Well, that's weird because they give you 4 part 20s and 3. So I guess they figured maybe you'll lose one on accident because there's only 5 guys in here. So I'm not sure how that math adds up, but maybe there'll be an extra one in case you accidentally drop it, which I definitely give them mad props for if that's the case. Jumping into the build now, you can see the completed model, and this is the one that I showed you there on the first couple pages. And lots to point out on this. There's a lot of details. I don't know why they would like braid the horse's tail together there. I'm sure there's some sort of function to it, but I don't exactly know. You can see the barding, and then it actually has some depth to the back of the horse there. And there's a little bit of gapping because I didn't put glue back there. And something I always talk about too, this Tamiya extra thin cement is really good for this sort of stuff here because it'll seal up all those gaps. And speaking of gaps, you can't really see them because the barding hides all of the parts all underneath here. Now there's a little bit of gapping in the front, like I said, and in the back, which I just showed you. But across the top here, I added a little bit of glue from the inside. Oh, and something else I forgot to mention too that I realized when I was building this, they write what part it is. Like, so here is horse A. So you can see it right there. It's actually written on it. So they all, and there's horse head A. So you know that would be the other side of A. So if you get confused and you start clipping all these out, you should be able to match up all the halves because they actually write those on the inside. And then here is where you would put the saber bit if I put it on there, but I didn't. And then you've got on this side, so the bandoliers are separate bits, and you can see they're glued in right there. And then that one is glued in on the back. And what else was a separate bit? This was together. This was a separate bit. But there's a nice little slot and a gap for it to go into. This was a separate bit. The front of the bandolier was a separate bit. The shoulder pad or armor pad was a separate bit. This was all one bit. And then something I didn't talk about was this is a little slip fault sort of thing. So it's basically notched. So it kind of goes like this, and then you put the spear in like this. So you really won't be able to magnetize it, but you can definitely glue it and not have to worry about it falling off unless you like smash it on the ground or something like that. But you know, like we always say, don't smash your models, don't drop your models, don't smash them on the ground, you'll be fine. But there's always that, and then you can see the head, and it's got the two parts there. So it's a shockingly a large amount of parts. Now, I only built the one model, and here's why. It took a lot of effort. You have to line up these reins to go in that little notch right there, and then to go back to here, and there's a little crook that kind of comes up. You can't really see it, but it's like right there, kind of sticking out. That is actually a separate part. This is part of the horse. And then you have to, yeah, it's just a lot of effort. It's really a lot of effort to get that all in there. And I was having a trouble lining it up, and it almost looks like he's got a little bit of a droopy kind of shoulder here, but that was the only way I lined it up. It was so frustrating for me. So I think what I might do is pop this back off and just kind of slip it back up a little bit now that everything's had time to glue. But I was like, man, this really, it's almost a skill game at that point, and I got really frustrated. And I was like, you know what, we don't have time for this. We gotta make this content for these folks that want to see this stuff. So here we are. But what I can tell you is that when we swap the heads out, as long as you have some extra helmeted heads, and the more war facey the better, I think they work just fine. I mean, that doesn't look bad to me, swapped on there, especially the side with the shoulder pad. I think it looks great. So there is that. You don't have to use those helmets. And then seeing the gloves being different, it really doesn't kill it for me. Like, I think it looks fine. The only thing that's killing it for me is this droopy shoulder right here. But like I said, I'm gonna fix that. I just wanted to get it all lined up and together, and it just kind of drooped down a little bit that I didn't notice after it kind of dried. So other than that, just kind of keep an eye on it. It's a little frustrating. It's a little bit of a skill game. But I suppose if you use some like regular glue, that would probably help too. But I didn't. So just kind of keep that in mind. So let's compare his size to the traditional Death Rider guy here. Now, obviously the bases are different because Forgel recommended the 40 mil here. And now we've got these 60 by 35s. But size-wise, I mean, I feel like the horse is about the same size. It's just one's in stride and one's not. And this is a brass rod for a spear. This one isn't. So plastic, you can do a lot more than you can with resin. And I think for its time, these Death Riders are really sweet. And I'm not going to change mine. I guess I might have to rebase them, unfortunately. But I guess there is that. Or, maybe I'll just play and, hey, I'm going to play these like this. And maybe just get some cardboard cutouts or something to kind of put underneath it so I know exactly where they are or something like that. If there's any question, I can just glue some I'm just not going to do it. It's a lot of effort to rebase all the stuff, and I'm not going to do it every 3 years. All right, well, let's take a look at the Cadian upgrades and get on out of here. This set of upgrades, I believe, was $35, and it's kind of cool that it comes with, it's basically a full sprue, and we've seen a full sprue be a kit or even be an independent character like this. Like, I think Aramon comes in, he's $45 and comes on the same configuration, right? Karn the Betrayer too as well. Now, there's a lot of bits on here. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of cool stuff. Now, something that and let's just take a look at the sprue since I'm holding it now. So you've got a lot of different things on here. You've got a lot of different arms. Now, some of these are meant to match up to do the same thing, and I think the box art was a little bit misleading too, because you actually don't get two of these models here. You have to kind of choose. You want to make a medic and you want to make a mechanic here. Now, you could use the arms on different things. And some have different variants, but I think this was a bit misleading, and I almost think like whoever laid out this particular picture being so prominent right in front might have been a little trolly to GW, but we're just gonna leave it at that. I'll let you pause it and take a look at why, maybe, because it just draws a lot of attention to that model, and the way it's posed, it's something. So here's the rest of the sprues here. So you got the Fireman's Axe, and that's going to be the same pose as the wrench right here, but this guy, this mechanic has a ticket to the gun show, and this one has the armor plates on. So there's just a lot of cool different things you can do with this, and even the tank commander with the cape can either have the arm tucked in or have the sword out, which is really cool to see too. So let's jump into what you can actually make with all these. Here's the configuration of the sprues, a little bit better of a layout, so you kind of know where to grab stuff from. You've got all the capped heads, and then you've got some variant heads over here. The Kasrkin Rebreather heads are actually 2 bits. We saw that with the Command Squad from back in the day. And then you've got a lot of different stuff here that they show you that you can use to just kind of support different things, like the marker here, the axe arm, some packs, some sandbags and things. And then you can kind of see the bodies that you're going to need to do the specific kind of conversion things here. So there's bits that go on top of on the backs of guys. There's bits that go on packs. You got them carrying gas cannons here, which is pretty cool. The bedrolls. Then this particular one has a medic's bag on the back there, which is really cool to see. This is either the medic, which has the I guess a syringe there, or shot, or a vaccine. I don't know what. I guess it's a plunger. And then he's holding like a bag of blood here, and then a bedroll or something goes off. I can't even tell. And then there's the commander guy, and then you can use those same legs here to make the mechanic. And they say this is for the Rogel Dorn tank, just to kind of put them on there, like working on it. Or you can, like I said, you can have the guy at ease, or kind of like, hey, draw me closer. I want to hit him with my sword, Tiny Dancer sort of deal. But that's really cool. Like, I wish I could have built some of these up, but like I said, a little bit of bad preparation, a little bit of not being having enough time to actually do the good product for you. But some people were upset about this, kind of saying it was a money grab. I think this is a full another sprue, and I'd much rather get those Cadians for $50 than have this other sprue in each one, which you wouldn't need this in each one. So I kind of get where GW is going with this, and I think everybody will probably just kind of pick up one just to have some cool little other Cadians to kind of put in their army. And I feel like it's neat. It's a cool little add-on. It's $35. You don't have to get it the same week. Although nowadays with the shipping issues and all the allocations and things, you might want to. So just kind of think about all that there. So overall, I think it's 2 really neat kits. Definitely some highly anticipated ones that we hadn't seen in a while, and I can't really think of anything else really out there that we haven't seen yet for the Guard that is pending. No, I think that's pretty much it. So everything's out. You can get your Cadian armies all up and built. Besides the different regiments and things, having individual models for that. We'd love to see that, I'm sure. And I think they're getting a little closer to that too. But overall, I really like these 2 kits. Just a little bit of gotchas that I told you about on this Rough Rider one. And we didn't really talk about the magnetizing the arm, but they're the same size as the Space Marines. So, you can just use a nice little 1/8 by 1/16 inch magnet, and you'd be good to go there. And you only have to do it for that one arm. That's going to be on the Sergeant that you can put the Gold Lance on. So that's it for this one. Thank you very much for watching my unbox and build video on the new Attilan Rough Riders and talking a little bit about the Cadian upgrade sprue. And don't forget, you can always get your hobbies for less from dicehead.com, Amazon, and hopefully your local game store as well. If you liked that video feature, consider supporting us over at patreon.com and get back in the mail each month a miniature crate full of some of the stuff we review here, as well as some of the top 3D artist designs out there too, to help support what they're doing. Plus, discount coupon codes from some of those same manufacturers. They're yours to keep, whether you cancel or stay on. It's totally up to you. Obviously, we want to keep you as happy as possible. So check it out over at patreon.com/spikybits.